Welcome to the FinBiz Podcast. I'm your host, Devin Wainwright. On the show, we talk about how leaders scale with people, process, and how AI and tech are reshaping businesses. Every episode is part of a story, part framework, something that you can use in your own business for tomorrow. Today, I'm excited to host Sean Goldie, Director of Sales at HIYA. Sean, could you tell everybody who you are, who you serve, what problem you solve, and what your day-to-day role looks like?
Yeah. Hey, first of all, thanks, Devin, for having me on. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. I'm Sean Goldie. I'm the Director of Sales here at HIYA. I look over the global sales team here that does our Connect product. And what that brings to businesses is the ability to brand and identify their outbound phone calls on mobile devices, as well as gives them a ton of analytics and reporting. So it's an exciting place to be. We also do some stuff in the AI space as well, which is interesting. I'm sure we can talk more about that throughout the conversation.
No, yeah, we'll definitely get into the meat of it. How did you get into the space of voice identity and with fraud protection?
Almost like anything in sales, the folks throughout your journey and the people you meet, you stay connected with them. At some point, probably 3 years ago, one of my past colleagues and I started talking about what he was doing and the company he was working for, which is a small startup called HIYA. And that's how I entered the fray. They were looking to hire a new sales leader and I was able to jump into it. And again, it's a SaaS offering, and that's where I've spent the last 25 years. It happens to be in the telecom space, which is new in some senses to me. That's kind of how I got into it.
Let's talk more about some of the new things that might be happening. So what are you seeing shifting in the telecom / voice trust world that maybe few are talking about yet?
Yeah. So first of all, AI is massive across pretty much all industries, right? Especially if you're in the SaaS space as a vendor, AI is becoming prevalent across the board. How do we go to market? How do we leverage efficiencies and effectiveness to drive business at a higher level? For the voice channel, that gives an interesting opportunity for us. Number one, do we trust AI across the board? There are several things that it does really well. Are we ready to have conversations or do a podcast where I would be talking to you as an AI agent? I don't know if we're ready for that yet.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's the same on the voice side. Do you trust who's on the other side of the phone? Is that an actual human? Is it an agent? Is there a different business case for each? I'd say absolutely there is. As we explore that, telecom, I think, is really, getting tasked with. They've always battled robocalls. We've always battled, high rates of spam and all the rest. One of the things HIYA does on the other side of our business is run the protect services for networks like AT&T and Rogers and several other networks across the globe. But ultimately, do we trust people? And I think that puts us in a unique spot is we're using AI. We're starting to figure out how we use AI within HIYA from an operational side. We've built an AI agent that we're also selling, which helps with inbound qualification for companies using their website to drive, inbound demand. But we're also conscious of business gets done between humans. And that's where we believe the voice channel is a really optimal right now. With all of the AI rising to the top, it leads to a little bit of a distrust on who's on the other side of that phone. And if we can help humans connect with humans, that's even better.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's just from what I've been seeing in my own research and in the market and the people I talk to, I think what you're talking about as far as I know a lot of people are already replacing their customer service team with these voice AI agents. It's saving them a lot of money, obviously, in overhead, but it's just so much more efficient when it gets to that level, right? This particular company I know does a really good job at it. Now, how it's going to be with the actual AI person avatars on the other side of the screen, I hear it's close, but I'm still skeptical. I can't wait to see it happen, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if you've had the chance of having a conversation with an AI agent on an actual Zoom meeting or a WebEx type meeting. It is a very interesting experience. I know I'm personally not quite ready for it, but I think it's getting so close to real that at some point it's going to be in that no man's land of like, hey, is this a real person that I'm talking to, or is this an agent?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's going to be a scary world for sure.
Totally.
You're talking about some of the AI tools that you use internally, right? Where do you see a gap in internal systems where you could use AI even more?
For me, on the sales side, I spend every day in that go-to-market pipeline from marketing to sales to customer success. And for me, there's a ton of workflow scenarios that really are limited as they are today, and there's a way to optimize them through AI agents. I think a lot of the workflow is there. Deploying agents like we've created in that inbound side, what that is going to allow us to do is instead of hiring, 10 more SDRs, hey, we can use an agent for certain types of leads that come in to do that qualification call, that quick 5 to 10 minute overview, and then live transfer to an actual sales rep. So there's definitely some impact on the revenue side. Holding 10 SDRs versus having 2, there's quite a bit of overhead. And we think we can streamline a lot of that process, which will lead to a better experience from the customer side. When you're a customer, there's nothing worse than going to a website, raising your hand, then waiting for a couple of days to get a call back, finally getting that call back, then having that human, ask you a couple questions and they go, wait, we need to schedule the next thing, the typical SDR to sales flow. We think that agent specifically will help us maximize the customer experience. We're looking at a ton of other areas, whether it be from the customer success side. Is there a way that we could help maximize help desk and customer experience through a mix of agents and humans? And I think that's where we're really big on, because we are big on the voice channel. We do think business gets done between humans ultimately. But what are the small tactical things that we can take off the plate within the go-to-market process that will really be a win for us and be a win for the customer or the prospect, right? Because it's no good if it's great for us if it doesn't work for you.
That's the thing. It seems like the reverse trend that I see is that a lot of people, depending on whatever your agency is, are promising results for their customers that they don't even use internally yet. And it's 100%. Like, well, if it works, why aren't you using it for yourself?
Well, that's the promise that vendors are, or they overpromise possibly, right? Like they're creating all of this stuff. I'll tell you, just internally at HIYA, we have a ton of smart people. We're doing weekly lunch and learns about vibe coding, which I'm like, what the hell is that? How are we going to update these processes? And what are the things we're going to attack? By the way, HR and somebody smart on the IT side vibe coded this thing. And now our onboarding's all done through an agent. When you come on board here, I'm like, oh, okay, great. What does that mean to us from a tech side? Because if you and I could sit down and spin up an agent, then what the heck's going to happen with these multi-billion-dollar SaaS companies that have spent their whole, existence optimizing workflows and all the rest, if you and I could just sit down and fix whatever we need to fix? That's a juxtaposition that is really uncomfortable for a lot of us. I think in sales, we're not going to go anywhere. There might be a trimming down of talent. I think folks, we've been bloated since SaaS kind of exploded on the market early 2000s, where we have all of these different specialty roles. We have SDR, sales reps, customer success, account management. No one on either side knows what half of us do. We're trying to figure it out. Ultimately, a lot of that bloat will get fixed through AI, but I also think there's a whole, are we cannibalizing what we do as technology companies, providing good tech, optimizing business processes and all the rest? I have a 17-year-old kid and he's showing me how he's really into sports photography, and he's already using AI and programs that he's writing and processes he's writing to help color balance photos automatically and stuff that used to take him 2 hours. Now he runs the agent across it and it takes 5 minutes to do 5,000 photos, right? There's a lot of people promising stuff that they're not even using. That's a problem for us. We're using anything we go out to market with. We've had this inbound agent here at HIYA for 6 to 8 months, and now we're finally ready next month to kind of launch it as a SKU and start talking to the market about it. And are we late compared to other people doing it? Of course. Do we think our agent's right for everyone? No. There's going to be a group of folks that we're the perfect fit for, and we just want to make sure that it's working at its most optimal case. We can absolutely help a business by applying an agent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Now, when it comes to some of these enterprises, right? How are they thinking about voice identity differently now compared to 2-3 years ago?
I think if you get really basic with the outbound phone call, let's talk about identified calling versus unidentified calling. You and I, we've had cell phones probably for 20, 25 years. We've been faced with this problem ever since. Who's calling me? It's just a 7-digit unidentified number. Is this the person I should talk to or not talk to? And then probably 15, 20 years ago, there was the advent, but area code localization happened, right? Now, as a sales leader, I can have certain numbers localized so they appeared to be coming from the same location my people are living in, right?
Right.
Like Seattle 206 or 425 would be an area code localization.
I got 3 today. Yep.
You got 3 today. And every once in a while, you and I probably answer that call thinking maybe it's, for me, it's always my kid's school that I get caught on. Oh, I think it's my kid's school, pick it up. And then not only am I surprised, but I'm usually pretty pissed off by now. And so I don't know why the industry thinks that actually works. Yeah, you'll catch people, answering, and they might be an association. That was 15, 20 years ago, right? So the pace of change, which has been rapid the last year and a half, is people realizing this is a really bad way to do business. I would never send an email to a prospect from an unidentified email alias. I'm going to use my @HIYA, Sean Goldie @HIYA.com. So why would I ever call somebody without identifying myself as HIYA on the phone? I think that simplicity is finally hitting where people are like, yeah, all of the number rotation, all of the area code localization when we're doing our big outbound calls, it really doesn't work. It's been a break fix for not having identity on phones. And now there's companies like HIYA that provide that. So let's leverage that. I mean, we've seen a huge uptick in business in the last year and a half.
That's awesome. Based off of everything you just said and how the old way doesn't work, how is HIYA changing strategy in response to that?
Yeah, for us, as we're hiring, we're also looking at the roles that we can limit bringing on, that we can improve process through AI and workflows. So our humans are actually doing mission critical work, like servicing a customer. We're looking at the balance of how many more people we need to hire versus the process we need to change while we're doing it. It's a balance as you grow that take implementation and service time versus employees. And then there's other things that you got to add bodies to. For us, I think we're being very calculated on adding bodies as well as improving our internal go-to-market to meet both. We do know that the amount of conversations we have each day are growing. Our ability to get a hold of our own prospects and customers is gone through the roof. And so it's important to have people on the other end of the phone as well that are knowledgeable, can answer questions, can take care of the business that our customers expect them to do.
Well, that's awesome, man. So let's talk about that a little bit more, because you just mentioned that your ability to get into contact with your own customers has skyrocketed, right? So this is going to be a 2-part question.
Okay.
One, give me a really cool or really good case study, and you don't have to say their name, but just an example of somebody you contacted or somebody seeking your help, the problem that they were facing, what you guys implemented, and then what was the result of that.
I'll give you a home services company. Okay. So we deal here at HIYA, our technology, we could help a real estate agent, one person show, all the way up to a Fortune 100 company. In this case, this is a mid-size home services company. Think HVAC, heating and air conditioning. They also have a brand on the side that does plumbing. So they have 2 different distinctive services they offer. They came to us because they could not get a hold of their customers. Folks would fill out a web form, hey, I need a new furnace. I want to buy a generator. It would take them somewhere between 8 and 12 calls to get a hold of that actual person saying, I need help. Now, that's one flow of how someone comes in organically through the website, filling it out. Another flow is they're using an aggregator like an Angie's List, where you and I, like, our furnace breaks, it's cold, I need a furnace repair company. I look it up and my information gets spit out across all of the different HVAC companies within the region. And then it becomes just a speed to lead, right? How do I get a hold of you as fast as possible? Typically, it takes most of those providers somewhere between 8 and 12 phone calls to get a hold of them. For us, what has happened, in using HIYA and deploying branded calling on our HIYA Connect service is they're now able to get a hold of folks same day on those inbound leads. Super easy. There's name recognition. Let's just call it ABC HVAC. I fill out a form. 10 minutes later, somebody from ABC HVAC calls me. Pretty likely to answer that call. So their answer rate's somewhere in the 55 to 60% on the unique answer rate, which is industry average. An answer rate is somewhere between 4 and 6%. And we're talking answer rate, not your dialer says that you have a 20% answer rate. It also includes all the voicemails and all the rest. We're talking a real human picks up the phone answer rate. For them, it's close to 60% on the unique side. They also show the callback. So if you were to call me right now, or if ABC HVAC was to call you or I right now, we probably wouldn't answer because we're in this conversation, but we would see that's ABC HVAC. I'm going to call them back after the call. So we have a recipient callback. This company ranges somewhere between 20 and 23% on the recipient callback. They can see that collectively they're getting a hold of almost 90% of the people that they're calling. That's unheard of, right? It is a very, very simple thing. When there's name recognition and context to why you're calling, a lot of times it's just the brand name. The consumer is going to say, yeah, I want to take that call. Or they might say, oh yeah, I reached out to them. I already had somebody else. They might pick up the phone and say, hey, look, Devin, thanks for reaching out. I already have somebody else out here at the house fixing my furnace. We're all good. But at least you get the yes or the no. And that's all we want in sales and in business in general, right? Can we move it forward or not?
So what I got from that, now I'm curious, when you're articulating ROI or outcomes to somebody, like when are you kind of leaning more towards like a don't lose or prevent so negative avoidance versus positive gain? Like how do you articulate ROI to a potential client?
Great question. Number one, we're going to look at any business as having multiple use cases. A use case is a reason for calling. The most basic is a sales side. You're going to have a sales use case. You're going to have a probably customer service use case, right? There's maybe billing or account. There's a ton of different reasons why your company would call the end user. Does that make sense first? So that's where we start, is use case. From use case, then it's who am I dealing with? Is this person run towards pleasure or run away from pain, right? And that's where we're trying to figure out risk avoidance versus positive ROI versus the time to get a hold of folks. There's a ton of different things we can look at as far as the value of a call. And ultimately, that's what we're looking at in every use case. What is the value of that call? I'll give you a basic example. Several dentist office, doctor's office, chiropractic office use us, right? And they use us a lot of times. Their biggest use case or their most bang for their buck on the ROI is their appointment reminder. And they're like, hey, we have all these people that make all these appointments and then they no-show us, right? And we try to call them the day before and 2 hours before, we never get an answer. We never get a pickup, and then we have churn or lost time in bed. So in a chiropractic example, every doctor within this practice has a total of 14 appointments they can take each day. They're in the office between 8, 9, 10 hours a day, but realistically, they can only work on 14 people, and those are half-hour sessions. Make sense so far? Right? So if you look at their business, every single day, they have these 14 appointments. Each one of those appointments is at minimum $300 in service, right? It could be $2,000 depending on what it is, but every half hour has a baseline value to them of $300. So every time someone no-shows, that's cost them $300. And so we looked at like, okay, what's the sweet spot for you? On average, every doctor has 2 to 3 appointments that miss every day. Do you think you could pick up one a day by being able to get a hold of people? Do you think if you didn't pick it up, would they reschedule for a different time so you at least still hold that money? And from there, you're able to articulate the ROI. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense.
In sales and marketing, super easy, right? Your CMO, your head of sales is going to know the yield from top of funnel all the way down and what a lead costs. Therefore, I can tell you the most expensive thing you could be doing is driving inbound leads, right? That raise their hand, that are high quality, that then it takes you 8 to 10 conversations to get a hold of them. Here at HIYA, we make 3 calls within the first 2 days, and we talk to 75% of the folks that raise their hand within the first 2 days. Simple, right? It's just all math. On the service, it's going to be like an HVAC company, depending on where their leads come from, is going to be a different use case. The inbound lead is easy. If they're buying leads from a home show, then it's speed to lead. This happens with our solar customers, our solar company customers. They go to the Boston Home Show, and that home show has 30,000 people that walk through it in a week. At the end of that home show, every vendor, whether you're the solar company or the door company, they get one big list of everybody that walked in the door and their emails. And what do they start doing? They just start smiling and dialing. Hey, we saw you at the home show. Half the time, you and I never walk by that solar company, but there's also another 8 or 10 solar companies at that home show. The ones that show up branded, guess what happens? People answer the phone, right? Or they do a specific branding, ABC Solar, Boston Home Show follow up. Suddenly there's context and at least they're getting a hold of people. People might not be saying yes, but they're giving them, hey, this is when or this is if, and what are the follow-up steps. So there's a ton of use cases.
You mentioned you talk with a lot of different other companies, right?
Yeah.
Which persona or department, let's say, that you're talking to within those companies are usually the hardest to relay that trust, right? Is it legal? Is it IT?
It's interesting. It's probably IT or telecom services in our massive companies. The other thing that we're doing, which you and I haven't talked about, we've talked about the branding side. We're also helping with the telephone number reputation. You've probably received a call that says spam or fraud or telemarketing. That's a reputation tag, which the other side of our business, that's what we're doing for carriers. Well, the problem that a business has limited visibility into is, out of the 100 numbers that I own, which ones have good reputation versus bad reputation? Within our product, we're showing you good or bad reputation and how do you fix that reputation. And so that tends to be where telecom gets involved and starts getting super granular on I want to whitelist this number. Well, there's no such thing as that only 911 and emergency services are completely whitelisted, right? But number two, that's actually not the problem. The problem isn't that your numbers have 2% of them are getting spam, fraud, likely, or telemarketing tags. The problem is it's taking you 8 to 10 calls to get people on the phone, right? So we continue to yin and yang, and typically the IT folks want to get way more into the weeds around reputation. They kind of miss the big picture of every conversation has business value. And the fact that you're delaying that business value by weeks or never getting to it because people aren't answering the phone, that's your bigger issue. Does that make sense? Yes, this is a problem, but this problem goes away if more people interact with your numbers in a positive way. Your reputation is enhanced and you're less likely to have spam or fraud tags or calls being blocked. If you call people with context, they're a lot less likely to block you than they are to just pick up the phone and say, hey, Sean, I was at your website. We're not interested at this point. Give me a call in 6 months or whatnot. At least you're having a conversation rather than calling them 8 or 10 times and, making them mad, frustrating them to a point where they block you. So hopefully that answered the question. For us, our system's magical in a way. It's tied to the phone number. So there's no implementation as far as integration with other systems. We don't care. It's technology agnostic. We plug you in based on the phone number. Doesn't matter where that phone call is coming from, whether you're calling out from a landline or you're using a dialer of some sort. We don't care. Whatever phone numbers you want branded have to sit in our system.
And then where do you see on a looking forward kind of thing, where do you want to take in the next 12, 18 months?
The hardest part about what we do at HIYA is everyone can use this, right? In my past life, I grew up at Concur, spent 8+ years there, and you were looking for a certain type of business that did travel and expense, right? At my time at Aptio, we were looking at certain types of CIOs and Fortune 1000 companies was our TAM. 6 Sense, same thing. Here at HIYA, it's legitimately anybody that's making calls, business calls, we can affect. And I think that's what's the hardest for us is really getting focused on, okay, what are the verticals that are the biggest bang for our buck, that we make the biggest impact for, the prospects. We're focused on identifying some of those verticals and penetrating them. We know home services, we know, SaaS companies, it's sales and marketing, huge ROIs in those spaces. We also know that as we grow our footprint globally, we're able to brand in over 44 countries. Right now, we're really looking at MEA growth. Late last year and most of this year is really focused on the UK, and we've had massive growth over there. We're starting to grow. We have a big growth plan for Spain, for Germany, for the Netherlands as well. It's probably global expansion is where we're really, for the short term, focused. And then inside of that, in each geo, what are the clear TAM businesses that we should focus on and really harvest accounts from, if you will. Does that help?
That makes total sense, right? So it's not so much the location.
Yeah.
I guess on the tech side, the location has to govern the use, but then also, all right, cool, what industries or sectors in that location could I then target? So follow up with this. If you could instantly achieve that goals within the next 12 to 18 months, what would be one constraint you would remove to reach those goals? So prospect education, sales cycle, integration headaches would free up the most growth.
I think education is probably the biggest hurdle. We talked about current practices within how you do outbound calls, rotate numbers, and do area code localization. That's a global thing. Everyone does it. It's not just US, right? It's happening in Canada, UK, Spain, Germany, everywhere. That piece of just like, you would never send a business email from some random Gmail alias and expect to get anything. Why are you making calls that are unidentified? So I think the education is not granular branding and using the logo on the phone and all the other stuff our prospects want to get into. If you don't put your name on the phone when you call people, how would you expect them to interact with you any differently? It's almost so simple. It's like Amazon. I still have vivid memories of the first time my wife decided to order stuff on Amazon. Some dude shows up at my house at like 8 or 9 p.m., gets out of a beat up Honda Civic, hat backwards, tattoos, has a box in his hand. Do you feel comfortable at that point? Who is this? Who's on my property? Who's walking up to my door? That was my experience. Amazon had a ton of issues with their drivers getting hurt, threatened, punched, even guns pulled on them because they were unidentified originally. What did they do? They gave them that little vest. Now they're branded. It's no different than when I walk up, when I call you. Like, you should have the expectations that you know who's on the other side of that phone. And then that gives you the choice of, now that I know who's calling me, do I answer it or do I not?
And now, what do you think? How much time do potential clients have these days to afford not making the decision to use somebody like you?
Yeah, a great question. It's the constant conversation we have, right? If you do nothing for the next month or the next 2 weeks or the next week, what is that costing you? I think they all think they have plenty of time because, again, it's not a core thing that you budgeted for, or you've thought about ever. There was never really a way to solve the problem until the last 4 or 5 years. Now there's a way to solve this problem. It is about educating people to understand, like, hey, you can solve it now. Our sales cycle 2.5 years ago, when I joined the HIYA team, was right around 120 days. Right now, our sales cycle fluctuates between 30 and 40 days. And that is all attributed, I think, to those questions that we ask and the conversations we have and the realization of, wait a minute, I can solve this problem. The average ROI, return on investment, is about a month and a half with HIYA. Like, this actually becomes a no-brainer in most situations. You're not solving it completely. The way HIYA works and brands is through either networks or devices. And every geographic area out there that we move into, we have a different coverage, right? We either have partnerships with networks or with devices. There's not one regional area in the world that we have 100% coverage. But, like in the US, we cover somewhere between 70 to 75% of the mobile market. That is more than good enough. In Australia, we don't have partners in the carrier space. We only have our integrations with Samsung devices. That's only about 16 to 17% of the total Australian market that we can brand on. Yet Australian companies are coming on board every day, signing up for it because that's a lot better than nothing. And there's an absolute positive ROI on that. So yeah, it's something that we should all be doing, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm biased.
No, I'll take that as unbiased and truthful. Make the offer a no-brainer and educate them on it. They're more likely to see the value.
Totally.
Well, man, I think that's a good note to end on. Sean, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you for really peeling back some of the layers of voice trust, telecom, and the business impact. I know many people watching and operators even will gain clarity. Sean, for anybody who wants to implement HIYA into their business or just learn a little bit more about the topic, what's the best way that they can find you?
I think first, easiest, LinkedIn. Go find me on LinkedIn. You can connect with me that way. You can also reach out to HIYA.com. We offer a ton of educational services. We do a weekly webinar every week. So if you want to learn more, come check us out there. On the reputation side, we have a free offering, which is go register your numbers at HIYA.com. So you go out to HIYA.com. Our registration is free. That kind of gives you a 100 level credit score towards the networks, if you will. It lets the networks know that, like, hey, ABC company, you're ABC company, and you own these phone numbers. And that's a great way to starting to manage kind of your overall voice channel and the productivity of that when it comes to reputation. And then the second step would be to add in the branding and the analytics side. LinkedIn first, Second, HIYA.com. Third, if you want to call me, I can give you my number, but if you're not branded, I'm not going to answer it. So that might not work out.
No, fair enough, man. I'll make sure to include those links in the video in the description. Thanks again for appearing on FinBiz. For our listeners, if this episode landed for you, subscribe and share with somebody pioneering trust and voice or identity. I am Devin Wainwright, and this was FinBiz.